Robin Campbell, UB40. Good to have you here at Noise 11. I think I'm just going by the dates. You joined UB40 in 1978. I joined radio in 1977. So we look like we're about the same vintage.
I guess we probably are.
Well, being right there at the start when that first UB40 record came out, I actually remember playing Food for Thought on the radio way back in 1980. Now, Australians weren't really conditioned to reggae music other than the occasional Bob Marley hit through the 1970s. And then UB40 came along, established itself with Food for Thought, and then right through 1980s, which, you know, pretty much ended up in everything going on here. You know, you were really the education for a lot of Australians being introduced to reggae music.
Well, yeah, I guess for a lot of people in a lot of countries, really. Marley was the guy who broke the ice for definite. You know, he was the world ambassador, the global ambassador for reggae first in the 70s. And then we came along in the 80s, and our growth was pretty much after Marley had passed away, you know. When was it? 81, I think. 81 he passed away. So, you know, it's once we got going, it was non-stop for us. It never let up at all. We've had 50 top 40 hits in the UK, you know, which is feat not many bands have achieved. You know, it's I still can't quite believe it myself.
Well, 1985 was the Baggariddim album, and here we are all these years later, all these decades later, another millennium actually, and we're introduced to Bigga Baggariddim. You know, so is this like considered the sequel?
Yeah, we did Baggariddim in the 80s, but that was mainly a launch pad, a vehicle for Birmingham artists, Birmingham DJs, you know, and MC artists. Of course, we did the track with Chrissie that was on that as well, that I Got You, Babe, which was on Baggariddim. But yeah, we just were so happy with the current album, For the Many, that we wanted to do a collaboration using those rhythm tracks off the album. We just thought it'd be really nice to do something like Baggariddim, but with a more international flavour, you know, because we've had an international career and worked and played with many people over the years. In fact, I think almost everybody on there is someone we've met in the last few years and played with. Usually, when we arrive in their country, you know, maybe they're opening for us, like it was with House of Shem in New Zealand. I think the last time we were in Australia, Inner Circle played with us. And then when we went to India in 2017, the Reggae Rajas opened for us. And they run the Reggae Sunsplash in India, the Goan Sunsplash Festival, which is massive. So, you know, I mean, it's really just a way of showing how strong reggae is, you know, in every corner of the globe. And it's all slightly different as well, you know. It's all got a different flavour depending on where you go to, you know. And it was just our way of showing how reggae has come on, how much it's grown, and how loved it is everywhere.
I wasn't aware of that Australian connection with Inner Circle there. There is a connection to the past in that Pablo Rider and Slinger, who was Gunslinger way back then,
on the original,
have crossed over to both records. Is that why you reached out to them, just to, you know, put that connection in there?
Yeah, well, we were not because of the collab. It was before the collaboration that we actually got in touch with them. Pablo Rider is actually Earl, our bass player's cousin, and we just wanted to get some of that flavour on the For the Many album. So we got in touch with two of the guys that were on the original Baggariddim, and they did some stuff for us on that album. And then, of course, when we decided to do a collaboration, they were the two obvious choices to go, you know, to make reference to Baggariddim. We asked them if they'd be on the new Baggariddim, the Bigga Baggariddum. And yeah, that was how they got involved. And then then there was Tipper Irie, who we've known from the 80s, known for ages. Inner Circle, of course, we've played with them many times over the years. That was the last time we saw them was in Australia, but they've played with us many times over the years, and they're even older than I am. Even older than we are.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, they've been going for 50 years. It's incredible. They formed in '68, I think. So they've been around a long time. So yeah, we asked them, but then we also got in touch with brand new artists from Jamaica. Black Hero and Leno Banton are two guys on there who are up and coming, young guys who we were just very impressed with. So we just got in touch with them and said, "Would you be interested?" And they jumped at it. So that was great too.
Is Leno Banton any relation to Pato Banton, that was on the Baggariddim album?
Well, he may be some distant relative. I don't know. He's actually the son of Burra Banton, Jamaican rapper. So yeah, I don't know if he's any relation to Pato. I never asked. It's a very common name, Banton. There's Budju as well, isn't there?
What about Chrissie Hynde? Did you go back to Chrissie and ask her if she wanted to be involved?
No, strangely. I mean, it would have made sense to. But of course, we'd already worked with her and we'd done a few tracks with her. So it wasn't uppermost in our mind, but it would have made a lot of sense to have done that. But the reaction has been so positive to this album that there's every chance we're going to do another one. A Bigga Baggariddim. And if that happens, then we'll almost certainly ask Chrissie, because several people have said to me, "Why didn't you ask Chrissie?" In fact, I've got a list of people who asked me, "Why aren't I on your collaboration album?" So we could easily do another one.
That's going to be fascinating if you do a third, because you have done a trilogy in the past with Labour of Love.
We've done 4 Labour of Loves, and I don't see. I mean, it's already part of a trilogy, because For the Many in dub, and the Bigga Baggariddum are all, part of the same album. They're all based on the same rhythm tracks. So, it's already part of a trilogy, if you like. But, I think it's quite likely that we could do another Baggariddim.
With, we're talking about Chrissie, I Got You Babe was your first #1 hit in Australia. I know that was a massive hit all around the world, but, when that song came along, doing a cover version, I guess, you put a lot of effort into your original music. You do a cover version, and then it's the one that goes to #1 first. Was that both exciting and strange at the same time?
We don't think of it like that. I mean, Red Red Wine was a cover, and that was actually our first #1 in the UK or anywhere in the world. In '83, that was a few years before the Chrissie track. So, and that was a cover, and it doesn't matter to me. It's still it's our tune. We made it our tune. We made it our own, and we're the only band that had a #1 with it. With the Red Red Wine. Obviously, I Got You Babe was. I think that was #1 with the original, but I don't even think of the original when we're doing it. It's just that's gone out of my head really. It's just one of our tunes now. It's become ours, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Red Red Wine was a complete reinvention, but it did elevate Neil Diamond back into a spotlight, because at the time, around 1983, Neil wasn't exactly, the hottest star in the world anymore, was he? He was sort of known for what he'd done in the 70s and 60s, and sort of started to get into the Vegas sort of nightclub era at that point. And UB40 came along, and suddenly the name Neil Diamond was hip again.
I don't know whether that was anything to do with us. I don't think he needs any help from us. He's had enough success, that man, on his own. But I don't even know whether he noticed that we'd had a hit with his song. He never heard from him when we did. So I don't know what difference it made to his life, really.
I'm sure it earned him a few cases of Red Red Wine.
For sure. But, as I say, he's no stranger to success, that man. So, he had his own successes.
I just love how you curate the covers that you do. Cherry O Baby was a song that the Rolling Stones actually covered as well. But, you know, the
Absolutely
UB40 and the
right.
Rolling Stones, the original, are three totally different pieces of creativity, aren't they?
But, you know, I mean, we weren't covering the Stones, we were covering the original. So Eric Donaldson, that was his original song. And in fact, as far as I know, there's been something like 30 versions of that song done by different artists. You know, it's a very popular song.
What about Many Rivers to Cross? I would imagine that would, it's almost one of those sacred moments in music. You have to you tread very carefully when you cover Many Rivers to Cross, but you carried that one off.
Yeah, well, you know, you can't fear the original. You can only pay tribute to it. You know, it was one of the great songs, and you know, it was Jimmy Cliff. What can you say? It's a great song. So it was one of the ones we definitely wanted to cover.
UB40 had a strange beginning, didn't it, with that first single? The first single was King, Food for Thought was the B-side. How did it come to be that Food for Thought became the dominant song?
Well, it actually wasn't a B-side, it was a double A. We actually couldn't decide which one to make the A out of the two, so we made it a double A side. And we left it up to the radio stations to play the side they wanted. We actually thought that King would be the one that got played because we preferred it. That's the one we liked more musically, you know. But obviously the poppiest and the catchiest turned out to be Food for Thought. That iconic sax line, you know, just turned out to be the one that radio stations loved. And that's, you know, that's the one that got played. But yeah, it was a double A side, and it was precisely because we had no idea which one to make the A side.
That album came along. The diversity in that record, when you think that of a track like Food for Thought, and you mirror that up against, I Think It's Going to Rain Today, the Randy Newman song, which I would have thought would have been probably the furthest choice that I would have thought a band like UB40 would ever be heading to. Why that song?
That was the influence of my father, who was a recording artist. He was a folk musician, and he was a Randy Newman fan, and he loved that tune. He recorded that tune in the 60s, around about the time Randy Newman wrote it, I guess, you know. So we knew that song as kids, and we'd always loved it. And we just thought it'd be hilarious to do a reggae version of it for our dad, really, you know. To amuse him.
Your dad, Ian Campbell, was quite a well-known folk singer in the UK, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, you've come from a family of folk into a band of reggae.
Yeah, well, I mean, surrounded by music from childhood, you know, all of our lives we were surrounded by music and musicians. I remember sitting at the feet of the musicians in my father's group, rehearsing in our front room, you know. We would just sit and listen to them play. So, and, you know, my father also had a very successful folk club. He had the biggest folk club in Europe at some point in the 60s when I was a little kid, you know. So we were surrounded by music. And I think probably he would have thought that we were going to become folk musicians when we grew up. But we were also surrounded, the area that we lived in, we were surrounded by reggae as well. So that was the music we fell in love with. That was the dance music, you know. It was diametrically opposed, the opposite of what our father was into, you know. And I think he was disappointed that we wanted to be in a reggae band at first until we were successful, and then he was very proud of us.
Did you ever collaborate with him on any of your records?
He helped me with songwriting at first, when we were first writing lyrics. In fact, Food for Thought was from an idea of his. And he very much helped me with those lyrics. And he wrote the lyrics for Madame Medusa, which was on the 12-inch with the album, with the first album. He wrote the lyrics for that, so and gave them to me because he wanted us to have good lyrics. He was a great songwriter, you know, and he'd been writing songs for a long time. In fact, Paul Simon recorded one of his songs later on in his career. So, you know, my father was a recognised singer-songwriter. So yeah, he helped us in that way. But we were never going to be musically collaborating, just because, you know, it was to him it was the music we were playing was very strange. To us it was absolutely natural, but to him it was very strange.
Your brother Duncan joined the band in 2008. At the same time, your other brother Ali left. Now that was like a real tense moment within UB40. I guess it must make for a very tense around the Christmas table conversations these days if you ever get together as a family. What is the family dynamic between you and Ali now?
We haven't seen him since he left.
Oh, wow.
There is no family dynamic. I mean, I see all of my family except for him. You know, he left Birmingham, had a new wife and started a new family, and that was it. You know, he hasn't spoken to myself or Duncan since he left. Even though Duncan refused to get involved unless he had Ali's blessing, which Ali gave him. I was there when he did it over the phone. He said, I don't have a problem with it. He said, I've left, you do what you want, and never spoke to him again. Or me, as it happens, you know. It's very strange. But, you know, he'd become a very strange person by that point.
You do have a March Australian tour still scheduled for 2022. We're going to cross our fingers. There may be a bit of quarantining involved.
Permanently.
Yeah, there may be a bit of quarantining involved when you get here. Would that be a concern for the band if you had to spend 2 weeks in quarantine before you did your first show?
If that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. I'm hoping that won't be the case by then. You know, by next year, hopefully, the doors will be open again, and we won't be quarantining because we'll all have had our jabs. You know, I mean, we're all vaccinated now, so hopefully things are going to ease. You know, the restrictions will ease. Otherwise, touring is going to become impossible. And you know, obviously, it has to open up at some point, and we've just got to, as you say, cross our fingers and hope that Australia, New Zealand happens for us next year, because it's been put back at least 3 times so far.
How will you work Bigga Baggariddum into the set list when you get here? So I can imagine you could come on and just do the singles, just do the hits, and you'd still have a 4-hour concert. Now you've got a new album to slot into that. How's it work?
Absolutely. But, well, we don't play just the hits, obviously. We play the hits. We play some of the hits. We play, you know, the ones that everyone expects us to play, like Food for Thought and Can't Help Falling in Love, Red Red Wine, you know, Kingston Town. Those are the songs that must be played. And then we'll play others like 1 in 10 and Food for Thought, King, tunes like that. But then, of course, we're going to play new stuff. We always do. We're not a cabaret act. We like to play stuff that we've just recorded, you know, and that's why we go back out on the road, is to play our fans our new records, you know. So that's very much part of our touring life, is to play our latest stuff, you know. So yeah, that we'll work that into the set. I mean, when we play New Zealand, Australia, we will have House of Shem supporting us. So they've got 3 tracks on the album. So there's every chance that they'll be representing for the collaboration album. So yeah, whatever country we land in, we'll have some members, you know, of the collaboration album, and some representation from whoever. Like when we go to India, obviously the Reggae Rajas will support us, and they'll come on and do their number too. But yeah, it's we play the songs we have to play. We play the songs we're expected to play, and we also we play our new stuff, or as much of it as we can get away with, and try and put a few surprises in for the hardcore fans that, you know, a track that they might not have heard for a while, and a track they'd like to hear, you know. It's a juggling act, and whatever happens, you always get someone after the show saying, "You didn't play my favourite."
Well, 2022 Australia. Thank you for joining us here today at Noise 11.
Thank you.